and gentlemen, and welcome to our shorter of the two factoring by grouping videos. If you're watching this video, again, it's either because you're feeling really confident with your factoring by grouping and you feel like you can just jump right into a couple examples, or you watch the longer video and you're just looking for a little more practice. So this one, where I'm going to assume that you know the 4 steps that we do or that we look for when we're factoring a polynomial. Real briefly, verbally, we're looking for our greatest common factor, see if there's anything that all 4 of these terms share that we can pull out in the front. In this case, there is not. So now we look to see if there are 2 terms, we would do a difference of squares, or we'd look to do a difference of squares. If there were 3 terms, we'd look to do our backwards FOIL. And then in this case, there are 4 terms, so we're going to look to do our factoring by grouping, which is what we're practicing. So I know that we got to do a factoring by grouping. So the first thing I'm going to do is do our great divide, leave this plus sign here because we need to remember that that's there. It's important. It's especially important on the next one because it's a minus sign for the first time. So just bear with me. We'll work through it. If I were to pull out the greatest common factor of 2x cubed and 10x squared, I could pull out a 2x squared. It's going to leave me with x plus 5. Those are our first 2 terms, greatest common factor, right? So now we're going to throw this plus in the middle. It's just hanging out. And now we're looking at these. We'd look at our x's first. Can't pull out any x's. So we look at our 3 and our 15. The greatest common factor of those 2 is in fact 3, which leaves us with this second part, which is 2x squared times the quantity x plus 5 plus 3 times the quantity x plus 5. And like I talked about in the other video, if you were to just read that out like I just did, we'd be able to notice that times the quantity x plus 5 is said in both of these terms. So that is in fact what we're going to be pulling out to the front for our answer. Now if you didn't want to read it out, you could just look and know that these are the same. And I know that I've done my division right and that we're going to be good to go because they are the same. I talked about this in the last video, but if they aren't, that means one of 2 things. Either you did some bad division or you didn't factor out the greatest common factor. You might have done like a factor but not the greatest one. So we always need these to match so that we can pull them out. And then we go x plus 5 in the front. And just like when we're factoring, so we factored out a 2x squared, that goes in the front. And then to get the guts, we're dividing both of our terms by this x plus 5. So real fast over here, 2x squared times x plus 5 divided by x plus 5. Well, what if I told you that this x plus 5 was like something different? What if I told you instead that this was a v and this was a v? Well, we'd know that our v's can cancel. So in the same way, okay, because these are the same thing, just because there's 2 terms doesn't mean that they aren't the same. Because they're the same thing, we can cancel them, okay? Leaves us with 2x squared and then plus 3 if we were to do this one. Another way to do this is you can just see what's left over. If you were to take out our x plus 5's, okay, we have a 2x squared and a positive 3. 2x squared and a positive 3. There you go. So we're going to move on to our next example. And like I said, this one's going to have a negative sign in the middle, which is going to change up our process just a little bit. And this is kind of a challenge problem for you guys who are looking for it. You guys probably won't see one that's this hard on a quiz or on the homework, but if you're watching these videos, you obviously are looking for something to do with your evening. So I figured I'd give you a little bit of a harder one that we can work through. So we're going to go minus 5x minus 15. There you go. So this one is different. We have a couple negatives. In our other video, we had one that had negatives, but they were here and here, which didn't really affect how we did our greatest common factor. But this middle term being a negative is different for us because every single time it's been a positive, and we just automatically pull it down after we do our first step. So this is going to be a little different. I'll explain why when we get there. But for now, this first part, we're just looking for something to pull out of our 2x cubed and our 6x squared, which I know can be 2x squared, which leaves us with x plus 3. So now, this negative can come right here. But the thing that's important to know about this is that when this negative comes right here, we need to flip the signs of our second and third term. Or our third and fourth term, excuse me. So we had negative 5x minus 15. By putting this negative here, we are saying that we are greatest common factoring our negative, and so we're dividing by, because when we pull something out, we divide by to get the guts, right? So we've pulled out this negative, and now we're dividing by this negative 1, okay, this invisible negative 1. And so when we divide negative 5x by negative 1, this negative becomes a positive. Same with our 15. If this problem was minus 5x plus 15, we would still want to pull out this negative, or we could still pull out this negative, okay? We'd want to pull out this negative, and now we flip our signs. So this was a negative, okay? We had negative 5x plus 15. We're pulling out a negative. Our signs will flip. This will become a positive, and now this positive that was in front of the 15 would become a negative. This is why this is a challenge problem for you guys, okay? We got some sign flipping. We won't worry about that on test and quizzes, like I said, but this is here to challenge you guys. So when we pull out a negative, we're flipping the signs. Another way to think about it, if you already know the greatest common factor of 5 and 15, if you know that it's already 5, you can just say, so say we have this and we know that our greatest common factor is already 5, you can pull out your negative and your 5 at the same time and then just divide, right? Because now we can see negative 5x divided by negative 5. Our negative 5's cancel, okay? And our negatives go away too. And we're just left with x. And then our negative 15 divided by negative 5, our negatives go away, and our 15 over 5 becomes 3 over 1, okay? And a positive 3, right? Because our negatives cancel. So there's a couple different ways you can approach that. I know it's confusing. If you really, really are dying to know, if you watch this video and you're just like, Mr. McGill, I'm super confused on this. If you're dying to know, let me know. I'll give you maybe a better explanation in class or a more in-depth one. We'll spend more time on it. But because this is a video and this is supposed to be the short one, we're gonna move right along. So this is in fact the correct way to greatest common factor, our negative 5x minus 15, okay? So we're gonna have this negative 5 times x plus 3, and hallelujah, we have two binomials that match after we've done our first step. So that means we're almost home free on our grouping here. Now we look and we can see that both of them have an x plus 3. We pull out that x plus 3 and we fill our guts of this parentheses with what's left. There you go, there's that second problem. Again, challenge problem for you guys. If you want to know, ask me in class. Otherwise, have a great night. Maybe look at some of the other examples. Look at the long video. I think I did 4 or 5 examples there. So if you're a little confused, go ahead and hop over there. Otherwise, have a good night. I will see you guys in class tomorrow. And yeah, have a wonderful day. Goodbye.